If you're a Mainer, you know a harbor seal when you see one. They have kind of a puppy dog face. And if you see a larger seal with a horse-like face, you might even know that's a gray seal. And that's where the mystery begins. We suddenly have more of them. And as gray seals increase, what else could increase?
Sharks. You hear about great whites coming around and taking the gray seals.
This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Today, we're going to learn about seals. Something weird is going on out there in the Gulf of Maine. We've always had a lot of harbor seals. I mean, a lot of them. They're not that hard to see along our coastline, and there are many famous places where you can see them all haul out. But in the last couple of decades, gray seals have been moving in. The second largest pupping colony in the United States is now in Maine. In fact, we're going out to see it next week, if the weather cooperates. I'll tell you all about that later in the show. But first, we've got to get the science in all this. And we'll be crashing the party at a presentation of Dr. Jim Gilbert that he recently offered about the subject. He's Professor Emeritus of Wildlife Ecology from the University of Maine. And he's one of Maine's foremost seal experts. We're chasing seals today. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. Let's start with the definitions. Seals are in a group known as pinnipeds, fin-footed marine mammals. There are three basic types of pinnipeds. It includes walruses, which we don't have, but that would be so cool if we did. It includes fur seals and sea lions, which have ears, and they can pull their legs under the body so that they can kind of walk on land and even pull themselves up so they can balance a ball on their noses. We don't have those either. And there are the true seals. They don't have protruding ears, and they can't stand with their finned feet. They can just scoot along on their bellies to get up and down on coastal ledges. 4 species are seen in Maine, though 2 of them are pretty unusual. Harp seals and hooded seals sometimes come down from the far north and show up here. More on those in a few moments. We do have a lot of harbor seals. If you remember Andre the seal, well, he was one of those. And you can see a lot of them along the coast. And we have an ever-increasing number of gray seals, which are bigger and don't get in too close to shore as much, although even that is changing. I'm starting to see them all over the place lately. So there are 3 groups. Let's go to Dr. Gilbert.
One of the things that distinguishes these 3 groups is part of their life history. A walrus has a single pup, and she'll nurse it for a couple of years, and then wean it. She'll get pregnant again, and she'll carry that pregnancy for 15 months. A sea lion can have a pup every year, and they only have a single pup. But they nurse for about 6 months. Sometimes the record is up to 4 years they'll nurse. The harbor seal, or the true seals, nurse for only about 2 weeks. They have a single pup. The period of parental care for true seals, harbor seals and gray seals we have here is very short. And so that dictates a lot of their life history.
So our seals get rid of the kids pretty quick. There's only a brief time when you might see nursing pups, and only a relatively short time when you might see mother and child swimming together. Go out and catch your own fish, you slacker. Gray seals have only a few pupping colonies in Maine. The biggest is Seal Island, south of Stonington, about 20 miles out of the harbor. Green Island is a smaller one near Acadia National Park. On the other hand, harbor seals give birth all over the map. There are over 700 places along our coast where they can pop out a pup. Now then, back to the rarities.
We see harp seals. Harp seals are the ones that Greenpeace used to advertise with the nice white fluffy pups. They move south, juvenile wandering occurs, and then will come down into the Gulf of Maine. About half the bycatch of seals in the Gulf of Maine are harp seals in fisheries. The other one we have, it shows up once in a while, and sometimes we get adults, most often as pups, are hooded seals. Hooded seals pop way up north off of Labrador, and the juvenile wandering is so extensive that we've had pups show up in Cuba and Puerto Rico. And so it's not unusual to see one of them. But most of all, we're talking about harbor seals and more recently, gray seals. Harbor seals are found in both sides of the Atlantic and both sides of the Pacific Oceans on the northern hemisphere. They're not found in the southern hemisphere. Males are slightly larger than females. They're about 120 kilograms, females 190 kilograms. And you'll find them on rocky half-tide ledges all over the place. We have documented puppy going down as far as Casco Bay. There are a few transient pups or early pups that occur down as far as Massachusetts and even into New York, but most of the pupping occurs in the state of Maine and a little bit further on into Canada. But our population is much bigger than Canada's. In the wintertime, about 2/3 of the population disperses and they go further south. Food is going south, and so they go south. And they'll go down as far as North Carolina in the wintertime. I first got into harbor seals by estimating population size, and we've been, one way or another, somebody's been counting them since about 1971. And when you count them, you get up in a little airplane and fly around and take pictures, and then you get a poor undergraduate student to count the pictures. The first real census count, and this is raw count, this is not corrected for the numbers in the water, was back in 1981. We counted about 10,500 harbor seals.
So we had 11,000, maybe 12,000 harbor seals in Maine about 35 years ago. The population continued to increase for quite a while and then flattened out around 2001. And in 2012, we started to notice a decline in the harbor seal population. But the number of pups we were counting stayed about the same. We can't really explain that, but it may be that some of our seals have just gone missing somehow, and we don't know where. And we probably won't find out unless the federal government wants to spend the cash to do another full population survey, which they probably won't. But anyway, we do know the annual life cycle of harbor seals and pups.
Pups are born between May 1st and June 10th. The peak of pupping in Maine is about June 23rd, or May 23rd, excuse me. They nurse for anywhere from 16 to 41 days, average about 20 days. And then mom weans them. And so if you go out kayaking the first week in June, you might very well see a female harbor seal with a pup trying to climb on the back, and mom's going around and trying to growl at it. Get out of here, kid. I've had enough. They mate immediately after. Her hormone changes are drastic, from lactation, parental care to I'm ready, and that occurs in a very short time period. The seals all have delayed implantation, so they have fertilization, but the egg, the blastocyst, doesn't implant until sometime later in the fall. In early August, late July, they molt, and they literally molt. They lose their hair and their epidermal layer, the skin. And so you will see lots of seals hauled out in August, usually on some of the outer ledges in large groups, and they just sit there.
So if you want to see a lot of harbor seals hauled out on a ledge, that can happen anytime. Except that in winter, a lot of our seals have followed the food south. In late summer, thousands of them are just lazing around on those haul-out ledges, molting their hair, gestating their babies, and those babies won't be born until next spring. And that's really different than what the gray seals are doing. Gray seals are giving birth much earlier. In fact, they're starting right about now. You even have a chance to see that for yourself, which I'll explain shortly when Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine continues on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. We're talking seals today, something all Mainers know and no Mainers understand. Not much anyway. Anyone who has spent much time along the coast can see harbor seals pretty easily. We didn't used to have gray seals very much, but now we do. They're now making a lot of babies in Maine. So many, in fact, that Seal Island, south of Stonington, is the second largest pupping colony in the United States. And that's just happened recently. Hundreds of pregnant females are going ashore on that island right now, and they'll be giving birth over the next few weeks. We're actually going out there to take a look next weekend. The Idaho Ferry is making a run out from Stonington Saturday, December 10th. I'll be going along as a spotter. If you're interested, the boat leaves the dock at 9:30. Contact info for tickets is on their website at ilaho.com. ilaho.com. You can also get more information by finding them on Facebook. We'll see a lot of harbor seals while we're out there, too. Probably hundreds. So let's go back over the difference between harbor seals and gray seals. Dr. Jim Gilbert is Professor Emeritus of Wildlife Ecology at the University of Maine.
Now, I'm going to contrast gray seals and harbor seals. Harbor seals we find on half-tide ledges, rocky ledges, ledges without trees, and definitely ledges without people, or rocks without people. And we can have pups born on half-tide ledges. So a pup can be born and be in the water within 6 hours. And what I want to get across to you today is the pups are not passive. They are active, and they stay with mom. One of the things that we had done in some of our research is look at pup development. So what we did is we caught neonate harbor seal pups, 1 to 5 days old, and we tagged them, and then we would recapture them during the 20-day period. And we looked at the development of breathing and breath-holding capabilities. If you catch a seal pup and hold it, they fall asleep. And they're really not falling asleep. They're practicing. They're practicing holding their breath. Because what you want to do is become the best diver you can be. And the way you do that is by always practicing. So what they would do is set this up with a video camera in front of it and time the breaths. And then also take a strap, like you have an exercise strap to measure your heartbeat when you're running. They take one of those and put a wristwatch, and they can tell the heartbeat. So what happens when a seal dies is they hold their breath, but not only that, their heartbeat slows down. And when their heartbeat slows down, that allows them to shunt blood to particular spots in their body, brain, areas that they need the blood, and they are able to dive longer and further. Humans, when they dive, a practice diver will have a slower heartbeat, but not like a harbor seal. An adult harbor seal on land has a heartbeat of 89, 90. In the water, when it's diving, heartbeat's 12 beats a minute. So, one of the other things we had on these pups were time depth recorders, and within the 20 days, they had learned to dive 50, 100, 150 meters deep. They're following mom down, diving. Sometimes they just float on the surface, but they're with mom and watching mom and practicing their diving as well. So a pup is out while he's nursing or she's nursing, is out of the water on land 42% of the time. 58% of the time they're in the water with mom. And if you put radio tags on the females, they do the same thing. And if you look in the water, they're diving about 40% of the time and resting some other times. Mom might take extra dives, but they're out there with them. So they're very active in trying to learn how to dive. So being active, they move.
They move. Boy, do they ever. Professor Gilbert has talked a lot about putting monitors on seal pups. What they actually do is glue transmitters to their foreheads. Yeah. Eventually, the monitors will fall off when the pup gets older and molts its coat. Meanwhile, they can track pups precisely. And it turns out they're swimming with their moms all over the place. The bulk of our harbor seals are born between Muscongas Bay and Petit Manan, just above Scudic Point. Maybe 75% of them are pupped within that range, and they forage over that whole area, just following the fish and hauling out for rest and sunbathing anywhere. So the seals you see in the ledge today may not be the same seals you see tomorrow. They move a lot. Just a few days after they're born, harbor seal pups are learning how to dive, how to forage, and how to move great distances within the Gulf of Maine. They're about 22 pounds at birth, and they've got to fatten up fast. They've got to drink as much milk as they can because mom's going to chase them off pretty quickly. In fact, the moment mom has chased off the pup, she's going to get interested in the boys again. They don't waste much time. This is a dangerous time for pups.
And during that time, we probably lose anywhere from 5 to 15% of the pups during that 24-day lactation. If you have a storm, mother pup pairs are separated. If there's disturbance, you have people, boats, aircraft disturbance. If the female can't maintain lactation, she's in poor body condition, she will abandon the pup. And then there are all sorts of causes of natural mortality.
A baby seal that gets too weak may be harassed by gulls and eagles looking forward to an easy meal. A few babies are hit by boats. And here's one you don't even think about, but it happens surprisingly often. Maine's rocky coast has lots of crevices. Baby seals can roll over onto one of them and not be able to get out. 15% of pups die during the nursing period. If they survive that, there are still a lot of threats, and maybe half of them don't reach adulthood. Most pups who have been abandoned during the nursing period are going to die, but some do find a surrogate mother who perhaps lost her own pup, and they may have a chance that way. One thing is for certain. Nursing pups cannot feed themselves. They don't fish until they're weaned. They eat no fish.
None. They have no experience with feeding until after they're weaned. And oftentimes, say around June 5th through June 15th, you'll see groups of harbor seal pups that have been weaned all together on ledges. They're hanging out with their buddies and they don't know what to do. They're losing some weight. And then they will try to learn how to eat something. Most of them disperse long distances. We have tags that have showed up within a month down at Cape Cod. We had one in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, and we had one in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in the fall. So this juvenile dispersal that we talked about with hooded seals and heart seals also occurs with these other seals. But they must learn to feed on their own. And if they get something that they know how to feed on, they'll practice on it and keep going for it. And if they don't, they will probably, we've found them with gravel in their stomachs, all sorts of things. It's not a good thing.
Dr. Jim Gilbert is Professor Emeritus of Wildlife Ecology at the University of Maine, and he's a seal expert. Fishermen, of course, don't like seals because they eat fish. But maybe not the fish fishermen want to catch. Size does matter. You might be surprised. Do they eat lobsters? Well, you'll know in 3 minutes, and then we're going to talk about gray seals, the real stars of today's show. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8 on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Dr. Jim Gilbert is a seal expert, and we're crashing his lecture on today's show. Seals have always been a part of Maine's coastline. One seal became famous. Andre the Seal was the subject of children's books, and they even made a movie about him. He was 25 years old when he died in 1986. We've got 10, maybe 11,000 harbor seals in Maine. Not everybody loves seals. Fishermen get mad at them sometimes because they all eat fish. But
harbor seals do not, and gray seals do not eat lobster. They've looked and looked and looked, and all the stuff they've seen, they've not had lobster. One of the things that I want to get across to you, though, is that harbor seals and gray seals select food sizes that are smaller than what the fishermen are going for. And in almost all of these cases, they select sizes of fish that are immature versus mature. So I had a grad student that was working for National Marine Fisheries Service in Woods Hole, and they would take the bicoque seals from the gillnet fishery and necropsy them and see what they were eating. And it chooses the small ones. And one of the reasons that is it doesn't have to come back to the surface to swallow.
Seals eat fish, just about every fish they can get their teeth on. But most of what they eat are smaller than what commercial fishermen want to catch. They may take their toll in the fish population, but all predators out there are doing that. If you're going to get mad at seals, get mad at porpoises, dolphins, and puffins, too. Now, let's turn our discussion to gray seals. They're bigger, and they didn't used to be here much, but they are now.
Females about twice a week with an old harbor seal, and males more than 300 kilograms. They're big dudes. Their life cycle is very similar to what we were talking about for the harbor seal, except we're going to have pups in January. I just checked with Stephanie Wood of National Marine Fisheries Service, and the pups are being born in New England more early, so we're going to see some in December now than we didn't used to. They're nursed for about 3 weeks. They're weaned, and then mom leaves and mates, molts in April, and the embryo implants. So the circle's the same, it's just the dates are a little different.
So gray seals are bigger. They pup in winter over a 6-week period, not all at once. They go up much higher on land, and they stay up there nursing the pups until they're good and ready to leave. They don't go out to feed while nursing. They're less likely to be disturbed since they're too big to be bothered by most threats. There's not much pup mortality compared to harbor seals. So when we go out next weekend to Seal Island and the Idaho Ferry, we should see a lot of them, well up on land, tending babies, and not caring much that we're there. But here's the weird thing. We didn't have these gray seals at all until about 1994. And instead of the 700 different sites where harbor seals give birth, there are basically just 2 in Maine, Seal Island south of Stonington and Green Island near Bar Harbor. The biggest colony in the U.S. is Muskeget Island in Massachusetts near Nantucket. It's been seeing a growth rate of 25% per year. That is huge. They're increasing at a rate much faster than any possible birth rate. Well, Sable Island is the nearest pupping colony in Canada. In 1964, they counted about 200 pups. It's been going up 13% per year, and now maybe tops 70,000. Maine had maybe 500 gray seals born in 2008. It's probably doubled since then. For some reason, gray seal populations are exploding on Sable Island and coming down here to live. Why is that? What happened?
Good question. What happened in Sable Island in 1962? In 1962, they abandoned the rescue station. They had people on the island, about 15 miles long. They had people on the island, and they were rescuing shipwrecks, people who were crashing. And the Canadian government just pulled it off and just set up a lighthouse. That's all. So once people left, gray seals came, and population exploded. Fishermen do not like gray seals. In Massachusetts, got rid of the bounty on gray seals in 1964. They had a bounty on them. We had a bounty on seals, generally just any seal in Maine up until the teens, 20s, something along there. We put radio tags on a couple of satellite tags on a couple of gray seal pups, and it spent a lot of time kind of cruising the coast of Maine. Then it made some trips out to George's Bank, then over to Monomoy, Cape Cod area, and then went back up to Maine and went over to Nova Scotia in August, and back and forth in Nova Scotia. This gives you some idea of how a gray seal pup wanders. Okay, the adults, they put satellite tags on gray seals on Sable Island. They'll go up into Gulf of St. Lawrence. They'll go down almost to Georgia Bank and back. This is a couple of foraging trips in 1 year. So they move long distances as well. That's not unusual. You would expect them to be here. Okay. Genetic studies of gray seals show that all of these seals from Sable Island on the Gulf of St. Lawrence and in Maine and Massachusetts are genetically the same. It's one population.
So at least two things are going on. One, we stop shooting them, mostly. And two, they wander. They always have. The whole Gulf of Maine is their bathtub. It's no big deal for them. It's a bigger deal for us. We've had quite a love-hate relationship with seals. Dr. Jim Gilbert.
And part of that was due to Andre the seal and all the children's books that we saw. We have people that hate seals. And the only good seal is a dead seal. And then we have people that do like to see them, visit them, look at them in nature, etc. Paddling out, watching seals is a good pastime. Problem is that many of these kayakers are newbies. And they get out there and they've got to duck behind in the lee of a ledge or something like that because they're overextended. Or the first thing they can see is, let's go see those seals. One thing, they've had studies, you can drive a sailboat, a lobster boat by these buddies, and they don't care yet. They see a seal or a kayaker coming, and they're in the water right away. For some reason, they don't trust a kayaker. It looks like a big predator. When we were first learning how to catch seals in Machias Bay, we had some seals on ledges up in Holmes Sound, Holmes Bay, in that area, and they would ignore everything except our boat. They knew the sound of our motor and would run as soon as we came around the corner.
A quarter mile. That's about as close as I can get in my kayak before the seals panic and head for the water. I just don't go any closer. Although what also happens is that once the seals get in the water, they feel safer and sometimes curious. They pop up all around me, and I often peek back to see a few following me. They wouldn't do that if they thought I was a killer whale. Up next, too many seals can present some real problems for people. When Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine returns on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Next Saturday, a boatload of people are going out to Seal Island on board the Isle of Hope ferry. Gray seals have just started pupping on the second largest pupping island in the United States. We'll leave the dock at 9:30. You can be on that boat. See the website at isleofhope.com. Or look up the Isle of Hope ferry on Facebook. We'll be looking at a natural phenomenon. But too many seals can be a problem. They do eat commercially valuable fish species. A big seal can damage your net, and they can even make you sick. Dr. Jim Gilbert is Wildlife Ecology Professor Emeritus at the University of Maine.
Okay, we've talked a little bit about seals and fishermen being in the same spot. We do see a predation on commercial fish, obviously. They're taking them into smaller sizes. There's some damage to gear if you catch an animal in the net. To catch one of those 300-pound or 300-kilogram gray seal males, what do? You cut him out of the net as quick as you can, and then you've got a net to net. But probably the biggest concern, and especially for gray seals, is parasites. Gray seals are a definitive host. They host an adult codworm. And the codworm larvae insist in cod fillets. But what that does is that ruins the value of your cod. You've got to cancel the fillets. If you don't, somebody's going to get sick. And there's nothing like, they can withstand, the cyst can withstand freezing, so you can take a frozen fillet, put it in a skillet, out comes this worm. Not exactly the coolest thing in the world. We have aquaculture pinniped interactions occurring all the time, where seals get into aquaculture pens. Question about what causes that? We've had one study that looks like if you stay at least 4.5 kilometers away from haul-out site, that you shouldn't have any trouble. And then we also have a lot of bycatch. We they estimate in the St. Gillnet fishery about 900 gray seals and about an equal number of harbor seals each year.
Really? Almost 2,000 seals are killed in gillnets every year. I didn't see that one coming. Here's one you might not see coming. We didn't used to have gray seals at all. In a relatively short time, we've got a lot. They're staying all year, including the warmer months. Populations are really taking off near Cape Cod. What do you suppose we get with an explosion in seal numbers?
Sharks. And you hear about great whites coming around and taking the gray seals. We have a grad student that just finished down at Duke University that put satellite tags on gray seals adults in Chatham Harbor. He lost one of his 6 tags within a couple of weeks to a shark. The animal was killed. But what was interesting is that those gray seals would hang around all day long on the shore, just kind of ignore everything. People can walk up close to them, etc. And then, right at dusk, they'll leave, go out and feed. They're eating sand lance at the time. And they would be back at dawn. This was predator avoidance. So go through that gauntlet at Chatham Harbor, the mouth of Chatham Harbor, at a time when it was the hardest for a shark to see them. And they'd all go out together, swamp the predator. One of the problems that we have that people haven't thought about too much already, but are starting to be concerned, is we're starting to mix, especially in Cape Cod, down further south, we're starting to mix people and seals. And that's not good. I've been bitten by both harbor seals and gray seals for various reasons. In all cases, all I had to do was take an antibiotic. I did not have to take rabies shots. Seals do not have rabies. There's been one case of a fox that transmitted rabies to a ring seal in Svalbard, northern Norway. That's it. Now, if I have seals on the beach, I have people with their dogs on the beach, I have feral cats, I have foxes, etc., coyotes, the potential for rabies infection in the seals, whether it's gray seals or harbor seals, is higher here than any place else. And so this is something we're going to have to worry about. But it's not just rabies to the animals. These animals are vectors for a variety of diseases as well. The most important is influenza. We had an influenza outbreak in harbor seals. We had about 500 die in Cape Cod about the winter of 80-81. And the veterinarians that were necropsying them all came down with influenza. But we had harbor seal pups that were 5 days old that tested positive for influenza. So it's out there, and it's transmissible to humans.
Seal flu. That's what we need more of. Aches, pains, fever, and a craving for sushi. According to Dr. Gilbert, the limit to how large the seal population can grow is not the food supply. There's plenty of that. Disease seems to be the limiter. When seal crowds get to a certain number, things go bad. There have been die-offs from distemper in the North Sea, and similar die-offs have occurred elsewhere. Mother Nature takes care of the problem, but that's bad news for people if any of this stuff jumps to humans. And then let's not forget about those sharks. One more segment of Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine coming up. I can't wait to see what bad news there is in that. This is Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. I'm crashing the party again. Well, two parties. Dr. Jim Gilbert is Professor Emeritus of Wildlife Ecology at the University of Maine. He's a seal expert. And I attended a seal presentation a couple of weeks ago. Next weekend, I'm going out with the Isle of Ho ferry to visit Seal Island, the largest pupping colony in Maine. Gray seals are just now starting to give birth, and there should be a lot of them out there. If you also want to crash that party, I'll have details coming up. Now, just before the break, we were talking about things that can go wrong. Damage to fisheries, damage to fishing nets, damage to seals due to sharks, damage to humans because of disease threats. And then there's that whole climate change thing. That's not quite so bleak for seals. As the Gulf of Maine warms up, warm water fish are increasing. Puffins and a lot of other seabirds can't feed those fish to their young, and we've had some massive die-offs in recent years. Seals don't care. They'll eat just about anything. Ocean acidification is likely to deplete our lobsters and clams, but seals don't eat those anyway, so no problem for them. Rising sea levels will drown some traditional seal haulouts, but they'll just use others. Seals are actually pretty comfortable in a wide range of temperatures. Until the temperature gets below 10 degrees, they'll sit down on a wintry ledge and loaf. When layers of warmer water move the fish deeper, they just go down and get them. In fact, the population of northern seals has been expanding and contracting along our coastline for thousands of years. We know humans interacted with seals because it looks like we ate them.
We know that harbor seals were here, gray seals were here 5,000 years ago, some of the middens. And the water was warm up until about 1400 before the present. They find gray seals and harbor seals in equal numbers in those middens that were being taken by the natives, primarily in the winter. But what else did they find there? They found swordfish beaks, a warm water species, in that area as well. So things looked different back then in the Gulf than they do now.
So this is what you might find most curious about what's going on out there. Gray seals weren't giving birth in Maine waters until only about 22 years ago, when their pupping colony was discovered on Green Island near Bar Harbor. A larger colony came later out on Seal Island. Gray seals were here, then they weren't, now they are. Much of this is probably due to changes happening north of us as the gray seal population increases on Sable Island and points north. They're interacting more with our harbor seals down here and interacting more with harp seals up there. We're watching something rather dynamic taking place right under our very noses.
What we have to worry in the short term is about disease and potential interactions. This potentially, we think that some part of the harp seals are getting displaced by gray seals. They mix together. On land, there's no interaction, or very little interaction. They growl at each other, but they keep their distance. There have been some evidence, papers published over in England, where gray seals have caught harbor seals and killed them. So, we're going to stack up the different threats. Go to Explore.org this winter. Out on Seal Island, where they have the seal puffin cameras, they turn them on in the wintertime, or try to turn them on in the wintertime to watch harp or gray seal pups being born. And so they turn these on, and the first thing they see is a bunch of bald eagles with blood all over their faces where they've been eating placentas. But go there, and if you get a chance, go out on December 10th to Seal Island. It'll be worth the trip. You will enjoy it, and you'll enjoy getting to see something that wasn't here 20 years ago. We didn't find the Seal Island population until about 2000. We found the Green Island population about 94.
Okay, here are the details again of the seal trip next weekend. The Isle of Ho ferry will be making a special trip out to Seal Island to see this pupping spectacle. They'll leave the dock in Stonington at 9:30. For info, find them online at isleofho.com. isleofho.com. You can also look them up on Facebook. Now, I will be the spotter on that boat, pointing out all the unusual birds that happen in that little piece of the ocean. And speaking of which, with an expert like Dr. Jim Gilbert on hand right here, I wasn't about to miss the opportunity to ask a question about something that has puzzled me for years. I was told by a shark expert that seals and sea lions will eat fish out in the Pacific Ocean, but not so much over here in the North Atlantic.
I understood that sea lions might eat birds, but seals really don't much. How wrong am I?
Wrong.
Okay.
We did the harbor seal study for 2 years. And the first day we were out, we saw a harbor seal adult take a bird. Duck hunters that go out in the middle of the winter say that they have times trouble retrieving ducks that are shot because the seals when they get back. Yeah.
There it is. Seals do eat birds. That's not a huge surprise. If you look at a lot of our birds in the Gulf of Maine, they're dark on top and light on the bottom. That's a defensive adaptation that makes you a little harder to see from above and a little harder to see from below. Looking up from the depths at a white belly against a bright sky makes you a little bit less of a target. As we continue to poke at what's going on out there, keep in mind that the rapid increase in the gray seal population isn't just happening in our waters. It's happening even more down around Cape Cod. Because gray seals weren't here much over the last century, we tend to think of them as being one of those northern seals, like the harp and hooded seals. But actually, these big lumbering beasts have ranged much further south in the past.
And they were always there, and they really put the squeeze on them to put a bounty on them, and basically kill them all. Where in 1990, 1995, they would see one pup every 3 years. The Marine Mammal Protection Act says we want every marine mammal species to be at a level that they're a significant functioning part of the ecosystem. It does not say we don't want them to be more than a significant. And there's no definition of what's too many. Now, that could be one of the things that our Congress could change. If people abandoned Long Island, we'd have gray seals population all along the coast of Long Island. But where people aren't.
What we're seeing in Maine is a lot of movement. Gray seals have moved down. They move around. They can come down here, then go back up to Nova Scotia. Our harbor seals can wander all over the Gulf and then follow fish stocks in winter all the way down to the mid-Atlantic states. Do seals do that everywhere? What about the West Coast?
Their Pacific Coast seals do not move. They do not migrate like ours do. We radio tag some seals for correction factor for a survey, area survey. We tagged 22 harbor seals in Chatham Harbor in April. 17 of them were in Penobscot Bay in May. We had satellite tags on a couple in Penobscot Bay in early May, 2 males. They went down to Cape Cod a couple of days and came back. So they're using that whole area. That's their home run.
Let's get back to that whole shark thing. We've already talked about great white sharks appearing more often down around Cape Cod now that the seal population is exploding down there. Does that spread north?
You've got warmer water, and you've got food that just tastes great. And put that combination together, you're going to have sharks there. They're back. The sharks are there. And it's going to be a pressure point because there are people that don't like defecating on the beach. They don't like the seals. It's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of pushing and shoving.
And there you have it. We've got somewhere around 11,000 to 12,000 harbor seals. Now at least 1,000 gray seals have moved into Maine, and the numbers are increasing. We're all going to have to learn to play together in the same sandbox. Human interactions with seals are certainly increasing. Just the number of sea kayaks has increased in the last 2 decades, and a lot of seal haulouts are close to shore. Federal guidelines suggest not getting any closer than a quarter mile because seals spook easily most of the time.
If they're molded, they probably stick a little closer. If you have a pregnant female that's on the ledge, she'll just look at you. whether it's the gray seal or harbor seal. And when we were catching harbor seals, we'd inadvertently see a gray seal in the middle of the ledge. All those harbor seals would bail off. Gray seal would sit there and look at us, you know. So they don't spook as easy, they spook a little differently. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Jim Gilbert is Professor Emeritus of Wildlife Ecology and a seal expert at the University of Maine. To sum up, we've got a lot of harbor seals, and we always did. We didn't used to have many gray seals, but suddenly we do, and maybe we always did, except when we shot too many of them and they left. And now they're coming back, and the second largest gray seal pupping colony in the U.S. is now Seal Island south of Stonington, which is where some of us are going next weekend to take a look. To get yourself in that Isle Ho ferry adventure, contact them at isleho.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. We'll return next Saturday morning at 9 and Sunday morning at 8. And remember, all shows are archived at 929theticket.com, so you can re-listen or share any show with anybody. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.